and you showed it through your love through Jesus. And Lord, we do just pray that the purposes you have that would make Port Richey great would just be revealed to these that serve you, Lord God. And again, I always ask just to make our hearts pure, to counsel with one another and share your wisdom with us. And Lord, we do just thank you for getting the police cars ready and completing the radios, and just thank you for our fire truck. And Lord, we again just want to thank you for those that have come in, Patricia and Rachel and Darlene and Mr. Dute. Lord, we just pray as they would work together, they would just flow and bring order, Lord God. We just thank you for getting our budget in order and the overlay. And Lord, help us set our mind on the things that will move us forward and not the little things that might just kind of distract us, Lord. So we just thank you and praise you for tonight and ask for your order and your wisdom to bring our city to a greater place. In Jesus' name.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Mayor Scott Tremblay.
Here.
Vice Mayor William Dittmer.
Here.
Councilwoman Jenny Sorrell.
Here.
Councilman Todd McClary.
Here.
Councilman Tom Kinsella.
Here.
City Attorney James Matthew.
Here.
City Manager John Dute.
Here. Thank you. Looking for a motion to approve council minutes?
Motion to approve council minutes.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
At this time, we're going to move on to comments from the general public. There's two different areas that some people signed up for, so we'll still allow some other folks to sign up during the traffic study. But there's just general comments, and I'm going to invite Pastor Lord for general comments.
Thank you, sir, and council. Few things to continue to share. I do want to remind you that September 25th is our Cure Fest, and Mr. Dude, I want to get you some information over that. You can go and we got our release forms and some things that I hope to get you that before long. But the idea of it is to join with our cities and our county to particularly code enforcement or needs that can't be got any other way and are expensive, that we can join together and help. So it's actually a day of just serving the community, from building wheelchair ramps for people that run down to painting houses to cutting lawns or whatever. So we just want to continue to serve in that capacity. That's helped in our city. Also, you'll see before you what's going to be coming up before long, and I appreciate Mr. Dute's time with us on this. Our back to school. Now, what I'll share with you first, they are $10.50 a piece, and any of you that wanted to help what we do, say somebody, a business, wanted to give $100 to buy backpacks, well, we could put your card in there. We've worked with the Sheriff's Department and put their information on human trafficking and thing about gun training, and so all of those things are available in the backpacks when they get back to school. So for those that could help us, that would be a blessing. If you want to buy a backpack and get one for $10.50. Actually, the Wednesday before, which is July 21st, we'll be meeting over in our fellowship hall, and what we do is we meet with pizza and a time, and we stuff the backpacks. We pick them up in Clearwater, we stuff them, and that's a neat time. It'd be good if some of you just wanted to come out and help us do that and be a part of it. But you can see that it is Saturday, July the 24th, and we do have them pre-register, so they would be 3 pickups, 10, 11, and 12. That way you don't get a traffic jam, and we let them pick whatever's best. The idea is to meet with them, try to get them back to school, and then we offer them prayer, usually pray for them and the teachers and so forth. And the police department and the fire department every year has been so gracious with that. They've always been there when possible. Even sometimes I have to go leave on calls. But I just want to thank y'all so much. And so even though it would be good in our air conditioner, I really believe as a pastor and wanting to get the city together, I think it'd be good to have it in the park and follow the Easter egg hunt, invite them back out and get them ready for school. So we can be all part of a helping that, okay? I appreciate it. It's okay. The other thing is the men's conference. I talked to Daniel. I had gave you the information, and he said if there's any young men without fathers that need help struggling. What we did is we bought 40 tickets, and y'all had the information from last week. It's a godly man in a godless world. How to be the man of God at home, the workplace, and wherever you go. And so this is going out with key people, the president of Promise Keepers and pro ball players and so forth, to share with the men. And that's $15. We bought 40 of them. And if y'all like to go, we hope maybe to take our bus and go down and spend a day. And I think for us that, like you and I, we're all on the front lines of moving our city and people forward. And goodness, I think it's beneficial. So if any of you would like to be a part of that, that would be great. Also, Terry was here with Protect Our Children, and it was a great time. They're moving forward. I think they're in 10 counties, about ready for 13. Isn't that right, Pat? And Pat Rogers happens to head it up for this area. And you people of influence, we need your influence in helping in the schools to protect our family and the family structure. So thank you and bless you for your time, Mayor, and all you do. And in any way we can help, we're here to serve. So thank you all. Lord bless you.
Thank you, Pastor Ward. Pat Rogers, welcome. Come on up.
Pat Rogers, 4838 Sunset Boulevard. I've brought this up before, but I wonder if anybody's actually checked to see if there is a limitation on the speed limits in the city. Because I know years ago when we were looking into the speed bumps over on Sunset and Pier, I was told, or we were all told, that there were only 2 speed limits in the city, and that was either 30 or 20. And only 3 roads were 30. Bay Boulevard, Grand, and Washington. Everything else was 20. So I'm just wondering if anybody's looked that up at all.
Thank you, Ms. Rogers. That'll be part of the discussion tonight. I see some other folks here. Anyone else is welcome to speak. But if you want to speak on a specific topic, we'll get to that point as well. Any hands? Come on up. What's your name?
How you doing? My name's Frank.
Frank. Can you say your first and last name and your
Frank
address?
Batari.
Okay.
I live over here, Port Richey.
Okay.
Just me, and my concern is,
Can you put your address on the record for us?
my address, 5118 Bems Court, Port Richey, Florida, 34668.
Thank you, sir.
Here's my thing. I got dogs. I got a couple of big dogs. I got 5 big English Masters at home. As every day I drive, everybody just goes on their chores, does whatever. I'm really sick and tired of seeing these homeless people dragging these poor dogs up and down the streets, especially as this weather gets warmer, and I don't care if it's winter or summer. You know for yourself, mentally, there's I think 80-85% of them aren't 100%. And no offense to that, but you know, it just bothers the heck out of me that these are innocent creatures that are being dragged around by people that, you know, shouldn't be taking care of them, because they're really not. And that's my thing. Is there any way you guys can do something about that? Because, you know, it's just not fair. They're just innocent creatures being tortured 24/7, and I don't like to see it. And I'm not trying to be rude to you guys in any way, but it's, you know what, it's a living creature, you know? They all have in my book, have their rights to try to have a decent life, you know? I lived in Costa Rica. I basically fed dogs, like 40 dogs down there for a while. People didn't like it. They threatened to kill me. I didn't pay attention to them. I kept doing it. I even fed the horses. It's sad. It's a very poor country down there too. But I'm just saying, here we are in America, what's left of this country. That's just my opinion. I just think, Mr. Mayor there, Scott, if you want me to call you whatever, I'm sorry. You know what? We see it every day. We know what's going on, you know. I got a lot of family on the job and all that stuff, and you know, I hear more than the average people don't. So I'm fed up with seeing these poor dogs being dragged up and down the streets. There should be some kind of a rule, a law against it.
Thank you. We'll look into it. The police department.
Is there anything you think you can do?
That's going to be a discussion that has to happen with the police department, I would think, so.
Well, I just tell them to put it in the back of your head, you know what I mean? Here's just me, no offense. Would you guys or anybody, ladies, gentlemen, whatever, allow these homeless people to watch your not yours, but just say a toddler or an infant or whatever. And I'm just trying to put this picture in your head that these things, they have no rights. Just like an infant really doesn't know nothing. It's up to mommy and daddy to take care of them. This poor innocent creature, he's got someone with a mental capacity that's, you know yourself, it's about 80-85% of them aren't there, or 100%. And I just don't have no comfort in seeing these poor dogs being dragged up and down the streets. They're innocent creatures. Please do what you can. It's only right. They're a living thing, you know what I mean? Thank you.
Thank you, I appreciate your time.
I appreciate it. Thank you, guys.
This time, would anyone else like to speak for opening comments from the public? Seeing no hands, we're going to move on to comments from our city manager. I'd like to invite Mr. Duke this time.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Ongoing project updates. The County Restore Act official advised that they are in the middle of the 45-day public comment period that Treasury had mandated. That public period comment will conclude on June 26th. Treasury will then have their public comment and be moving forward to make a decision. On the Coatee River Landing project, AIR's contract has been signed and returned to them. Had communication with Mr. Martins this morning, and they are working on the phase 1 engineering development. Duke Energy has been engaged. They're working with AIR's, and they've included me in that conversation to see what opportunities there may be for us to partner with Duke on lighting and electricity. We've received the estimate for what it would cost for the legal work to change the boundaries of the CRA. It's estimated to be about $5,000, and so we've got that in. Staffing update, we're still in the search for an HR specialist. We expected to fill that a couple weeks ago, or a week ago. The person we offered the job to had already accepted another position, so we're still in the search for that. The CRS permit position search is underway. We filled 2 empty public works positions in the last week, and those guys have started work. In fact, I saw them out cutting trees this morning, so those guys are on the job. And the CRA grant manager position will be posted this week. City cleanup is completed. Public works guys filled 4 dumpsters. They made several sweeps of the city to pick up large objects that were on the street side, so appreciate those guys taking care of that. And quite a bit of stuff either came here to City Hall or our guys picked it up. Finance is still working on budget with me. We've had our first round of department head meetings and met with all the department heads to go over their initial and proposed budget numbers. Rachel's now working on getting those integrated into a single budget and single document, and so making progress on that front. ARPA, the American Rescue Plan Act, is coming a little bit more into focus. The Treasury put out guidance yesterday and today. Port Richey is, any city under 50,000 will receive money that's been sent to the state. The state will then distribute it to the smaller communities. Cities over 50,000 population will get their money directly from Treasury. Still expected to come in 2 groups. One will come soon this year. They don't have a date on it yet. And the next one will come a year from now. The guidance that I just got today is much more specific. There's a lot of ways to use the funds, but there are stipulations on every category, and it really is going to be tied back to, in most of the categories, tied back to what losses did we suffer because of COVID, and how do we literally replace those dollars that were lost. And so city staff is working on a list of possible projects, possible options to use that. Fortunately, there is some infrastructure opportunity there with water, sewer, and broadband. But it won't just be $1 million dumped into the general fund. It will have stipulations. The money has to be appropriated by the end of 2024. It has to all be spent by the end of 2026 with federal-style reporting guidelines to go along with that. So some work to do yet, but that money is on the way. I met with Mike Bishop. He's with the Pasco Economic Development Council. Had a good conversation with him. He's connected me to a couple of other economic development entities and people. Also met with the Tampa Bay Regional Planning Council, Randy DeShazo, and talked over some ideas and some possibilities for some economic planning for Port Richey. They've got some money. They've also got a lot more interested cities than what they have money, so we'd be competing, and Randy was careful not to make me any promises, but other than to take a look at our ideas. Upcoming, I'll be out of the office over the weekend, and so I'll ask somebody else to stand in my stead while my wife and I take a short break. I'll be leaving on the 27th, back in town on the 31st. And just as a reminder, City Hall is closed on Monday for Memorial Day. That's all I have, Mr. Mayor. I stand for your questions.
I'm going to start with Vice Mayor Dimmer. Do you have anything?
Just on the funds coming from the Treasury, are those things that could we incorporate into the Cody River Landing projects in any way, you think?
It looks like there might be some possibility for that. It'll have to be carefully crafted. If it's water sewer, yes. There's some specific, it can't be used for economic development kinds of things. There's some not allowed types of projects that are in the guidance, but I'll be sure to, anything that will fit into Cote River Landing, I'll put it on the list and bring it back here so you all can take a look at it and wrestle with it. If any of you have looked at the guidance or have ideas, I know Mr. McClary has sent me some ideas. I'll put them on the list and we'll wrestle with all of them. But it's, as the guidance has continued to come in, it's very clear that it has to be tied to losses or expenditures suffered because of COVID and suffered since the CARE Act was put into place. So I'll send that guidance out. I just got it today, but I'll put that in email and get it to all of you.
And are those losses directly linked to the city or losses to businesses in the city?
Both. And
Okay,
there are opportunities.
Because then the
to-
Cody River Landing project is for our restaurants, who I think took the hardest hit of probably most businesses.
Yeah, there's guidance specifically for hospitality, and there's reporting that has to be done. You have to justify the tie, but yes, there is money specifically for businesses, and much more broadly, the opportunities for businesses across the spectrum. So I'll get that to you.
I'm good, thank you.
I don't have any questions.
I don't have anything.
Okay. And with that, if there's no questions there, I didn't see anyone else that signed up as it relates to city management comments. We're going to move on to comments from myself and the council. If you guys don't mind, I wanted to open with a few things. The first thing that I want to open with is the city and the government and our community and just society as a whole are now starting to come out of COVID-19 and things are starting to get back to normal. One of the things that we've always historically done, which was canceled last year, was have a 4th of July celebration with the fireworks display in Waterfront Park. I don't think we budgeted for it last year for this year, but I think it would be great now that we have a lot of the restrictions, those restrictions have been removed, to be able to have a celebration in the park and to have fireworks. And I didn't know, number one, how you guys felt about it, and number two, if it's something that you guys would be willing to maybe talk about at a future, the next council meeting, to see if we can do another 4th of July event for the city.
Yeah, I don't have an objection to it, but I think we kind of passed the ability to get fireworks. Usually that's months ago, and they're pretty much booked up at this point, especially with all the supply problems now. I mean, we can talk about it, but I don't think you're going to find anybody.
but it was something I wanted to bring up, and I would have brought it up previous to this, but I think that I wasn't sure if they were going to keep lifting some of those restrictions that we've had, and now they're look like lifted enough to where we could probably do an event if we could contact or hire a fireworks company. So that would be the only issue. But
You may be stuck with Will shooting off fireworks.
I thought it was worth a discussion if you guys aren't opposed to that.
Well, I do have concern with, the timing of it, getting the fireworks and whatever else we need. But I do like the thought. I think that's a great idea, especially for the city and pull people together. If we can't do it 4th of July, what about Labor Day or some other celebration for the city, just to say, hey, look, thank you, for your support during last year, the pandemic, and do something. We still have fireworks, and maybe they'll have some leftovers. We'll get a discount.
Maybe for the next meeting, city manager or someone can check to see if anyone's even available, so we're not beating a dead horse in 2 weeks.
If it's available, and then the cost, so we'll have something to talk about.
Will do.
Okay. I had 2 more items that I wanted to discuss, or at least talk about. The first one was back when Mr. Sossaman was here, I was really concerned about the budget and the city finances moving forward. And one of the things that was happening is I felt that there were expenditures coming out of our general fund that could have come out of other pools of money. So at the time, back with Mr. Sossaman, I met with him and I suggested maybe the city should hire a forensic expert for municipalities that can give us some direction in terms of each line item in our budget, whether or not they can be pulled from other funds other than general fund. And the other reason I wanted to bring that up now is because I think some of those experts that do that may be on top of the new funding and give us some direction with the $1.2 million coming in. So I wanted to raise that issue, but it was interesting because I was talking to Rachel, our city finance director, and she found some documents where they had already reached out to a company and had everything set up and had an expert lined up, and they had just never done it. So I think a lot of that may have already been lined up, but I didn't know if you guys were willing or potentially able to follow up with that. So I just wanted to kind of ask.
Yes, so the company was called Maximus, and I reached out to them, and they are starting to work on that for us, and the cost is $5,000.
Okay. Because of the amount, we didn't have to come to council to discuss it?
Well, it was already approved. Everything was signed off and ready to go.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah. And yes, because of the amount.
So that was a budgeted item then already?
Correct, yes.
Okay. Thank you for the update. And then the last thing that I wanted to talk to the council about is I've had some discussions with Carl, and I'll do the best with his name, Mayetzka, who's the MPO director. The last couple MPO meetings I was unable to attend. I had some other things that were going on. So it was brought to the attention that they wanted to restructure the MPO, and the inference was they wanted to potentially remove the city from the MPO discussions. And I had a lengthy discussion with him because I have some issues with the MPO and the way that it was structured. So I wanted to relay to the council what I told them. There were 2 issues that I had with the way the MPO is structured. The way it's structured is you have basically all the county commissioners sit on the board, and then you have basically 1 mayor or council person from each city. And then there's items on the agenda which are discussed, and then there's generally a vote. There's 2 issues that I had with the MPO. A lot of the issues on the MPO have nothing to do with our city. So I was always uncomfortable voting for a road project in Zephyr Hills or Dade City. I didn't think that was my place because really I didn't have any involvement with that, nor did our city. It didn't have anything to do with our citizens. But the other issue that I had really is probably a bigger issue. In our form of government, I didn't feel comfortable being the only council person out of the 5 of us sitting up there making these decisions, even if it did have to do with the city of Port Richey. And I told them that in our form of government, that's something that should be discussed if it's important amongst our council before anyone from our city votes on it. So what I suggested, and I think that Mr. Dude has set up a meeting with him, and he's probably in a better position if there are any issues that have to do with transportation through our city that have to be discussed at these board meetings, to get advance notice, put them on our agenda so we can discuss them, and whatever we decide collectively, whoever goes, whether it's myself or another council person or Mr. Dude, can then vote for what the council in our entirety decides and not what one person decides, because I may vote one way that the four of you disagree with, and I'm not real comfortable with that. So I wanted to put that out there, and I put those concerns out to the MPO board director, and I think there may be a discussion on that at their next meeting, which I think was June 10th, if I'm not mistaken. So I didn't know if there's any input from you guys on that, because at that meeting I'll appear and on behalf of the city to address any issues they have. But those were the issues I had, and I wanted you guys to be able to weigh in on them, if anything.
The county seems to me they don't really even want us to be there. I think they like to just do their own thing when it comes to the MPO. Twice I, during COVID, was on for Zoom meetings with the MPO, and Sal can tell you they never even let us into the room to be heard for 2 meetings. So I really don't think they're looking for input, though I do agree if you do have to make a decision, I think it should be run by council.
And to that extent, one of the issues I have is I've sat through a handful of the meetings now, and most of the issues that they're discussing have nothing to do with the city or our citizens. So I was always, not that I wasn't interested as being a citizen in the county, but really I felt that was more of a county commissioner function to weigh in and not necessarily our city. You know, when we're talking about the road, 54 and different bypasses in different areas in the county. But if it does relate to the county, and I think one of the issues that they're discussing or talking about is the cart path that's supposed to go underneath and into the city. That is obviously something that not only do we want to be involved in, but I would never want to sit there and vote for the city without discussion amongst council. And that's just an example of one thing that may come up on an MPO meeting that I believe that this should be discussed, and our citizens should be able to weigh in and how we make those decisions. So I just wanted to put that out there and see how everyone else felt about that.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with it as well. I was just wondering, are we the only city that they are looking to remove or representation from?
Correct.
Isn't that an ironic little
And
twist?
so
So much for our county representative.
That involved in the prior administration and his friendship with one of the Can't hear you. What'd you say? Sorry. That position came with the prior administration and his relationship with one of the county commissions in regard to the path under the bridge. But I think, yeah, if it involves Port Richey, it should be discussed at council, and then you have something you can go to him with, or Mr. Duke can go to him with.
Correct, and that was the other thing I wanted to talk about is I felt that Mr. Duke may be in a better position as opposed to either myself or any of us to sit at those meetings, because he is the executive function and he probably should represent the city at those.
I agree.
Oh, I think he needs more to do, yeah. Anytime.
I guess any of us could go, as long as we've all agreed on whatever it's going to be. But by the way they have it set up, it's the mayor from each city generally goes. But given how our city charter sits, I don't know if that's the best thing for our city or our citizens. So that was the concern that I had. And I guess that's all I had for my comments. I was going to pass it on to, I'll start with Mr. Kinsella today.
Nothing at this time.
I have nothing.
Larry.
Did we get our police cars? That's all I needed to know.
I only have one item, and it was just more of a question to Mr. Duke. On the hike and bike trail on Old Post Road north of Bay, heading out towards Bryce Warner, to see if it'd be possible to possibly put a couple trash cans along that path. That's one of the paths I walk all the time, and it's usually got a lot of debris. So I think maybe we help out with a few cans here and there, we can get that cleaned up. That's all I had. Thank you.
We'll do that. Thank you. I think that's all the comments from council. There are a section for comments from boards or committees. I didn't see anyone signed up, but there are no boards or committees here. The next item is our consent agenda. Looking for a motion to approve.
Motion to approve consent agenda.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. We'll move on to council business. I wanted to go to item 3, which is our presentation and discussion of the traffic data for Bay Boulevard and Old Post Road. And I'm going to pass that to Mr. Dute for introduction, and then any information that he wants to present through the police department, we'll go from there.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My report is in your packet. The short version is the police department measured the speed of over 18,000 vehicles on Old Post. There's some graphs in your information to kind of show you what they found. My report is a kind of a distillation of 70 or 80 pages of federal guidance, and Chief Robinson's work on measuring those speeds. The bottom line, based on federal guidance and state of Florida Department of Transportation guidance, if 20% or more of the vehicles traveling down the roadway are speeding, that warrants a change in the speed limit or some other intervention. That could be anything from additional enforcement to changing the design of the roadway, traffic calming procedures, and so on. With the numbers that Chief Robinson got in his analysis, we're at 1%, 2% at most. Comparing that to the state and federal guidelines, we're a long way from warranting a speed limit change. There may be other options to look at on Old Post if we want to do some things to try to slow people down. Obviously, we can do enforcement as we have been. We can look at some other design options. But if we're going to follow the state and federal guidelines and compare that to the data that was gathered, I can't recommend a speed limit change.
And with that, I wanted to open up for discussion, but I wanted to know, in terms of the studies, just from the type of work that I do, not only do they have recommendations for whether or not to change the speed limit, but they do have recommendations for whether or not, based on the studies, that there should be more enforcement, less enforcement, or enforcement's correct. And there's some DOT standards on that. And Chief Robinson, are you familiar with any of those?
Yes.
Can you give us some more information based on what you know about those standards versus what our study showed?
I reached out to DOT, and they said, one, that they don't do any studies on private roads as far as recommendations regarding changing the speed limit or anything. They stick to state roadways, so it's up to the city or the local jurisdiction to determine what those speed limits are. Based upon the numbers that we accumulated from the traffic study, we are far below what the standard is in order to either change the speed limit, lower it, or for that matter, if necessary, to install any speed bumps or any speed humps.
But did they have recommendations in terms of enforcement outside of those issues?
No, they did not.
Okay. That's all I wanted to know. With that, I wanted to open it up for other questions or commentary from our council.
I spoke with Mr. Beaver earlier, there are some other ways to help possibly slow the traffic down visually. Mr. Dute, if you can explain some of those options that may be available to us.
Yeah, there's a long list of what's called traffic calming interventions that can be utilized. They range everywhere from, the most expensive, the most intrusive is to actually change the design of the road. And there's a number of ways to do that. Some of the least expensive, least intrusive ways, it might be something we'd want to take a look at. Simple things such as painting the white lines closer to the middle of the roadway, So instead of having the white line on the outside edge of the asphalt, move it in a foot. Paint the lines a foot in, put hash marks along that white line. It doesn't physically slow anybody down, but the image in a driver's mind is that the roadway is narrower, and a narrower roadway naturally causes people to slow down. If you plant trees along the side of the road, it does the same thing. It gives people more of a sense of this is a narrower roadway, and they'll naturally slow down. Putting development kinds of things. If you look at the Main Street in Newport Richey, they designed that roadway to have traffic very slow. Even where it's not narrow, it feels narrow. There's things you can see in your peripheral vision as you drive down the roadway. Those are some of the options that we could do. I've got a couple of federal documents on traffic calming that have options everywhere from the cheapest to the most expensive, and those are some things we could take a look at.
That was one of the items that when we get into the budget that I wanted to discuss anyways is restriping some of the lines. Even if we don't move them, some of the roads just need some general maintenance work. But if we do, when we get into budget restripe, that's certainly one of the options that I think we could look at on at least Bay and Old Post if we do that.
Well, that was my question. I wanted to know what traffic calming options were and to compare that for me. Thank you.
Include speed bumps.
Bumps and humps are two different things, I understand. Two different animals.
And I was really happy to see the numbers when they came in, to see the really low percentage that were enforceable speed violations is actually a good thing for the city. So
It must just be the loud cars that go by that make it sound fast.
I wouldn't know anything about that.
Yeah.
Mr. Kinsella, did you want to weigh in or have any commentary on this?
Yeah, the only thing, that study was done in a 6-day period. And again, quite a few residents have appeared at these meetings with their concerns. I would personally like to see this study to go on for a full month, just to get an idea, the various weekends all together, and just get a bigger picture of what's taking place as opposed to 6 days here or there. But take a look at it in a larger scale and bring that data back to us to see if there anything changes or.
Well, we bought the equipment, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's viable.
But I think we owe the citizens the respect that we need to look a little further and.
To continue to monitor it.
Correct.
Correct. I agree. I don't know if we have the resources to continue to do this, so that's going to be probably a question for our city management and our chief of police. I want to make sure that we have the correct resources if we're going to do this.
I'll get with Chief and we'll work out a plan.
Thank you.
And to the same extent, we should also look at other roads too. Make sure, since we bought this equipment, I'm assuming it sits there, and no, it doesn't sit there? Oh, all over the place?
We're up to our third additional roadway with the device that we're picking up next week. So we're trying to be ahead of the curve and see what our traffic speed problems are, if there are any, within the city. So we've been moving it around since we've gotten it.
So watch out there, Mr. Mayor, because
It's on Green Street. I'm good. So I guess before we close it, I do want the general public to be able to come speak on some of these issues. But what I was going to ask to do and make a recommendation is that we take no action other than to continue to monitor it and asked that it be put on maybe every month or two, just for an updated statistics to see where we're at. And I didn't know how the council feels about that.
I think the larger picture will give us a better idea. Tom on that.
So,
Several roads that probably need to be looked at closely, and Washington Street is one of the ones that comes to mind.
I can say just in general, I have a problem with the 30-mile and the 20-mile-an-hour speed limit that we have in this city, because it's just so abnormal to the rest of the world. Personally, yeah, it just, you are right. There's 3 roads at 30 miles an hour, and everything else is 20 miles an hour, and it makes no sense to me. So my engineering head just explodes when I see something like that.
so I think Washington Street was one of the streets that we've been working on as a city.
That's correct. We did do Washington Street already, and we saw that there was a moderate level of enforcement required for that, and we're in our 3rd week of enforcement in that location. And once that operation is done, we'll put the device back out to see if there's been any change in the driving habits of the vehicle operators.
All right, at this time, if you guys don't mind, I did want to open this to the general public so they can address the council. Okay. We're going to open it to general commentary from the public. There's several people that have signed up, and then anyone else can speak if they'd like. Betty Lou Cummins, welcome. Come on up.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
Okay. My name is Betty Lou Cummins. I live at 8607 Old Post Road. I bought the house in January of 2005 and have lived in it since July of 2013. I really would like to speak to the traffic concerns on my residential street. In the last few years, I've noticed a great increase in traffic, and in particular, speeding traffic. Our Port Richey police have been wonderful in policing and ticketing offenders, and I'm deeply grateful. However, it is impossible for them to police my street 24 hours a day and 7 days a week. There are other areas in the city that need and deserve their help as well. I have also read and heard the report that indicates that the incidence of speeding and ticketing is not great enough to warrant other speeding hindrances, according to existing guidelines. I strongly disagree with those guidelines, and I'll tell you why. When I was a young driver, my family and I moved to a new suburb in Detroit. At a nearby busy intersection, there was only a cautionary light, blinking yellow in one direction and red in another. We were told that the traffic safety guidelines did not yet call for a more protective traffic light, as there had not been enough incidences to merit such a change. Sounds familiar. One evening, I drove my mother into the city to visit her sister. On our way home, a driver ran through the red blinking light and T-boned our car. My mother survived, but spent time in the hospital and suffered a painful rehab. Soon after that, the light was changed to a more permanent red, yellow, green pattern. My mother's pain and sacrifice was the defining event that led to a better solution at our intersection. Here in Port Richey, if we continue to follow existing guidelines before taking action, who will be the sacrifice that leads to a better solution for Old Post Road? Will it be a young mother walking her baby in a stroller? Will it be an elderly person walking their dog? Will it be a young bicyclist out for a ride? I see these people every day on my road. Or will it be a resident simply trying to get their mail out of their mailbox as a truck whizzes by inches away? Who will take responsibility for their injuries and death? I don't think anybody here wants to, which is why I'm speaking up in strong support of speeding hindrances, such as speed bumps or any of the other items that we've heard tonight. Wouldn't you rather prevent a tragedy instead of crying over one? I know I would. Please install speed humps or other hindrances. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. No. All right, there's other people here that are on the same issue, and I wanted to invite anybody else. I recognize several people here. I don't see them signed up, but if you guys would like to speak, you're welcome to come on up. Come on up. Ms. Rogers, you're next. Mrs. Sherry Scherer, welcome.
Sherry Scherer, 7802 Davis Street. I don't live on that part of the city, so I don't really know Old Post Road. Where I live, our speedway is Limestone. Limestone is not that long of a road, but I didn't know if Old Post or Washington. To me, a speed hindrance that works really well is a stop sign. If they can have more stop signs so you don't have time enough to speed. Just a thought.
Thank you, Ms. Scherer. Ms. Rogers, welcome. Come on up.
Pat Rogers, 4838 Sunset Boulevard. I was surprised that the percentage was that low, because I know even with our speed humps, bumps, or whatever they are, some cars and trucks seem to go pretty fast, and others just creep along. And we don't have any center lines in our road, you know. You just kind of have to guess where it is. I think it's a good idea. I agree with the former speaker who said put something in there, because Old Post is rather narrow for the heavy traffic that it generates from all the businesses that use it. And so anything you can do to help the citizens or the visitors to not be injured is well worth the money.
Thank you, Ms. Rogers. Would anyone else like to speak? Seeing no hands, we're going to close up public commentary. Would the council want to respond in any way? Hearing no responses, I believe we'll readdress this at another time once we've monitored it some more. But for tonight, we will move on to our next agenda item. And that's going to be item number 4, which is the police department vehicle surplus. And I was going to pass that to Mr. Dute for whoever for introduction.
Very briefly, in your packet, there are vehicles that are no longer of value or service to the city and the police department, so it's time to surplus them.
I hate to lose the 2006 Crown Vic.
I can get you an address for the auction.
I hear you.
Just a question, is that the last of the Chargers?
No, ma'am, it's not.
Do we have a backup?
Yes, we have, once this is complete, we'll have 4 vehicles for, as backup vehicles. Unfortunately, 2 of them are Chargers.
Are the 2 Brooksville vehicles still in service?
Yes, they are.
One quick question, vehicle 121, is that being surplus as well? Because that's not part of the list, but it is part of the pictures.
That vehicle is already gone. It had been totaled, and the city received the insurance remunerator for it prior to not even getting here.
Okay.
I'd ask Chief to include that, just so we have a record of,
Oh,
you
okay.
know it's gone, and here's why it's gone.
It's missing a front end.
Yes, sir.
Completely.
Everything.
Motion to approve the list of police department patrol vehicles to be disposed of as surplus.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. That concludes our council business. We're going to move on to old business. And I'm going to start to my left with Vice Mayor Dittmer.
I think most of the answer will once we get the contract underway, like the FDOT for 19 and Cody, that'll all be into the CRA stuff.
That pretty much takes care of my questions too, thank you.
The old business, the vehicles that came in, I know that there's some outfitting, there were some camera equipment and some radios, a lot of electronics. You guys are cutting me off? I don't blame you. So What I was asking is, on the new vehicles that were outfitted, I know we had the equipment, do we have all the software and everything up to speed and working correctly in them?
Yeah, the only thing we're waiting for now is for Williams Communication to do what they do as far as encryption and getting the radios prepared so we can get them out to the personnel.
So
Everything else is in place.
So the in-car radios is all that's left?
That's correct. The radios are installed. It's just a couple of steps of encryption, and then it has to go to Pasco Radio to have some other work done. But we're waiting on Williams to contact us back.
Okay. Very well, thank you. That's all I had for old business.
So are those vehicles in service now, or are they just in the back?
They're in the back right now. We don't want to put them out without the in-car radios.
That's all I had.
If that's all the old business, looking for motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.